All right, guys, here is a Foundry virtual tabletop tips and tricks video. This is my first one, so let's see how bad or rough it is. The goal of this is to give you some things that we didn't cover last week when we were just messing around, to try to make the gameplay a little bit easier, highlight some of the features, and there are a few nuances that I'll call out to be sure that we can be as effective as we can. So with that, sit back, grab a coffee, grab a beer, grab a gin, grab a vodka, grab a joint, whatever, and let's sit down and go through this for a little bit. I'll try to make this quick and painless. I've got a character that I've created, so let me just quickly log in as them and kind of show you what we're talking about. And I got to figure out how to get rid of that. So you know this configuration, just click save. It's always going to ask you, you can set your color. If you want, send me a picture for yourself, not a big deal, save. So here I am, I'm Krusk the Paladin, and let me kind of walk through a couple of things. So I want to talk about macros, I want to talk about rolling dice, rolling for advantage and disadvantage, and then show you a little bit more about spells. I know we did that a little bit last week, but kind of highlight some of that and how it works. So first, let's talk a little bit about macros. That's something we definitely didn't talk about last week. So when you click on your character, you've got this little heads up display, which is kind of nice to kind of show you all of the things that you can do. So it's a easy, quick click, right? I go to my inventory, I click longsword, and it shows up over here in the chat where I can do a 2-hit, a 2 damage, etc. You can also do that in this macro bar. So I've already kind of set it up and I'll show you how to do that. All right, as you open, I don't know why that does that, I'll have to look at that, but anyway, is when you open your character sheet, I can go into inventory and I can just grab a weapon and I can drag it and drop it down there. So the nice thing about that is then I don't have to click, go up to HUD, go to inventory, go find it in the inventory because sometimes it could be long, is I can now just drag it and drop it down here, and then with the token selected, you just click it and it does the same thing. You know, it gives you some information. The reason it does twice is I've loaded a module that kind of does the 2-hit and the damage and haven't been able to figure out how to hide this top part yet, but for now we'll just walk through it. Same thing for spells. You can just grab a spell. If I'm going to do Thunderous Smite all the time, let's go and drag that down there. So again, this is completely up to you. It just makes your life a lot easier. So if you have those cantrips that you constantly cast, you can just add them down here. There are 5 pages, so you can just use these little arrows to scroll through them, right? And you can see that there's 5 pages. So if you've got a lot of things that you want to do, you know, it's up to you how you want to do it. You can use the HUD, you can use this, or you can use your character sheet. Because from the character sheet, if I want to do, you know, a sanctuary spell, just by hovering over it, notice the little icon becomes a D20. Well, I can click that. It's going to ask you consume spell slot. Always say yes, cheaters. Pick your cast at level and cast spell, and ta-da, there it is. So now it throws all the details in there. So nice thing here is it tells you everything and it gives you the saving throw. So you can just now start to make your saving throw right from here. So what was that DC cast? What is it? It's all right there. So that's kind of nice. And for you spellcasters who need to prepare spells, right, it tells you here which ones, the total number are prepared. So if you can prepare 5, 6, 2, whatever, it's easy. The way you do that is this little snowflake type thing. It's unprepared, it's now prepared, and I'm up to 5, right? The game will let you prepare every single spell that you have, right? Even if you're, you know, if I'm only allowed 3, it doesn't stop you. So, you know, we'll just let you manage that yourselves. But this is how you prepare spells. And if it's not prepared, right, notice it like disappears from here. You can still probably do it from here, right, which is a little cheating, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Oops, let me get rid of this because I cast it. That's coming up in a little bit. But let me bring the spell, the sheet back. Right, you can still cast it, but it won't show up in here. But it's just a way to say which spells. So when you do a rest, which spells do you want to prepare for the day? This is how you identify it, and that's what it tells you. Same thing about inventory, quickly about equipped and unequipped. So this means it's equipped. So just, you know, anything that's equipped, just add it and it's there. I'm not going to be a big deal about, you know, is it equipped or not. But if it's something that you're constantly using, let's just equip it. All right. So that's a little bit about the macro bar and some of those things and preparing spells. let's talk about making saving throws or attribute throws, right? So you can do it from here where you can go up to your skills, you click in acrobatics and it'll roll. You can do a save, based off of your attribute, or you can do an attribute check. All of that's available from there. It's also available from your character sheet if you want to prefer that. So, simply click athletics and it rolls it here. I rolled a 15, woohoo! So I made my athletics check, right? So it's just another way of doing it from here. Same thing. And for attribute checks, right, you can click on the heading and it does an ability check, 15, right? So if I want to do a dexterity ability check, or I could click the individual things over here, which the left side is an ability check, and the right side is a saving throw. All right, so if I click the right side, it's a saving throw. Again, it's just another way to make those rolls if you want, rather than coming up here. This might be easier than doing a character sheet, but it's just a different way of doing it. And long rest is also available under your hit dice, right? So if you say, hey, we're taking a long rest, you can click here, long rest here, click rest, and done. It's also under utility, right? Short rest, long rest. Inspiration, now that I know what that is, I probably will use it. And if you click inspiration there, notice here on your character sheet, right, it checked inspiration. So now you have an inspiration point that you can use. So you can modify a roll or that skill. And exhaustion, etc. And then you can keep track of all those things. So that's kind of that whole piece. So let's talk about dice rolling a little bit. So there's different ways of doing it. You can manually type it in. Probably not going to do that, right? But let's show you some of those features. So if I'm attacking with my longsword, right? I said you click it, it says here's your single roll. I click it, and it does the damage. And you'd pick either slashing or versatile if you're using it two-handed for that time. So simple click, done, right? But notice it only rolls one die, right? So what you can do is this first row directly under the little box is by clicking on this, notice it says roll with just one. If I click it once, it turns red with 2 dice. That's disadvantage. So if I say make the roll with disadvantage, right? Wow, that was a hell of a roll. It'll do a disadvantage roll. Notice it was 2 dice, right? And it kept the 12, but I had +7, so that's the 19. So it was a really good roll, right? But notice the 14 is grayed out. And what I did is, if you ever want to see what was rolled, you just click on the little bar and it'll expand. If I want to make a advantage, you just click it again and notice it's now green, right? So if I swing and I click to hit, it rolls 2 dice, right? It should have kept the 13 over the 6. 6 is grayed out, it kept the 13 +7, 20. So that's just an easy way of doing normal rolls, advantage or disadvantage rolls. And that works for checks. If I say make a strength check, wow, it plotted up here too, so I can make an advantage roll from here, pretty straightforward. If I want to do a dexterity check, I can do normal. And some of these acrobatics, advantage. So notice that it just says, let me do that from here. But you could also use the dice here to do that. So it's saving throw that it didn't work. So if I do a skill check, notice it brings up this discussion button where it says advantage, disadvantage. I can make a disadvantage roll. If I want to make an acrobatics with advantage, makes the advantage roll, right? Again, you click into it. But it looks like it's ability checks. Nope, not ability checks. It's saving throws, right? So if I want to make a saving throw and it's with advantage, notice it just rolled 1 die. You can use this down here for saving throw. So I'll have to remember that. If it's, hey, make a strength saving throw with advantage, just come over here first, make sure advantage is selected versus single die, so it saves. All right, so that's a good note to self. But again, this is a nice, easy way to be able to do that quickly. The other piece that you guys figured out already, but just to highlight it, is you have this dice roller down here. So if it's just, hey, I want to roll a d6, click it once, roll it. Now you get a nice d6 that rolls. If it's a d6 +1, click it once, and then use these to add a modifier. So notice it's 1d6 +1, roll, and now I've got a 5 + 1 is 6. And you can make combinations of dice, right? And each time you click one, it increments and you roll. You can also do advantage rolls here. So if it's, hey, make a roll, and you're scrambling to say, well, I just got to make a strength roll, fine, right? I can roll 2d20s, and then I can click advantage, and it makes an advantage roll, right? Straight 20. If it's a disadvantage, I can click 2d20s, roll it, and it's going to, it keeps, well, luckily that was a natural 20 and a natural 1, but it kept the 20, right? So this was a 10 and an 18, it kept the 10. Don't worry about the little things, it automatically creates the formula for you. And if you want to get real fancy, click this guy. It opens up like a calculator where you can create your own little formula and, plot times 6 divided by 8. Roll, and it creates that little funky thing. I don't know that we'd ever use that, but it's there. It gives you some flexibility if we want to get wacky. So that's a little bit about dice rolling and how to use this during attacks. Talked about macros, talked about that. So let's do spell casting and targeting. So, and I'm going to start a combat because that'll allow me to talk a little bit about the features over here. One thing to note, one of the nuances about FoundryVTT that catches me all the time is to be able to select a token and move him or her. Always make sure that your base control is selected and your select token is selected, right? Because if you're in, say, a template and you're trying to click your character, it's not going to work. You've got to, make sure you've got this selected. You say, why can't I move my guy? Make sure that these are selected. One other thing about movement before I go into combat is a couple of things. You can use this little ruler off the base controls, right? And if you just left click and select and just keep it clicked, right, you can see quickly how far things are, right, from your token. If you want to do a funky move, right, so it says, hey, I'm going to move up here, but I've got these 3 tables in my way or these 3 columns, right, rather than just a diagonal move, if you hold control on your keyboard and then click your character, I missed, but that's okay. Right, single click, release, it gives you that same measurement, and then if I click it again, I can actually drop multiple points. All right, so I can do these weird moves. It gives you the total, right? So I'm moving 60 feet, so I'm running. And when you're done, just release all your keys. You push space bar, but it's not going to work because I don't have the token selected. So I screwed that up. But if I did it from the token, right, and did this, then hit spacebar, it'll actually just then move it for you. Just an interesting way to move. All right, let's do a quick combat. So I'm going to switch to my DM view, and it's probably going to throw all these freaking dice in it because I didn't keep up with it. But let me just do this. All right, so I'm going to do that, do a quick start combat while it catches up. All right. I'll talk about how to pop this out in a second, and I'm going to begin combat. So one of the things when we begin combat, and we can figure out how we want to do it together, is I can roll initiative for everybody. So we get away from, hey, Pat, did you roll initiative? Hey, Scott, did you roll initiative? So I can just, with a click of a button, roll initiative for everybody, or if you want, you can roll initiatives for yourselves. We can figure that out. But combat. So here, this second button, the little fist, is the combat tracker. Now, we use chat a lot, so I recommend what you do is you right click on it on your mouse, just right click, and it opens it up in this little window, and then you can drag this guy and put it wherever it's going to make the most sense. So for now, I'm going to leave it here. And this is how you roll your own initiative, is when the combat starts and you view it, you can click this die and you've rolled your initiative. Great, you rolled it. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to roll for the NPCs, and then I'm going to, well, combat already began. That's kind of weird. I must have clicked something. So let's just do something real quick. I'm going to actually move forward to Krusk. Right, so Krusk, you're up. So what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to attack this kobold that's right next to me. Fantastic. All right, so you grab your sword, you swing it, you do your damage, right? I do 8 points. I would just apply 8 points to it. There's a feature called targeting. So if you want, under here is you go to the little bullseye and you pick this character. Right, so it's one, it does something that lets you know who you've targeted. And it also lets me know. So one thing it does here is notice it puts that little blue dot, right? Because you're the blue character, it puts that blue dot. So I know you're targeting that character. So a nice little feature, right? Rather than say, who are you firing at? You can just, use the target and pick it. The other nice thing that it does from your perspective is now, let me swing my longsword. Your control actor does not have a name. Yes, it does. Right? So I didn't have Krusk selected, so that's what that error message was. So I clicked him, I clicked the longsword, and notice over here now when it attacks, it included the kobold in it. So when you swing, right, it does damage, right? You killed that kobold, but it's just another nice way of showing how who's doing what, and then I can apply damage directly to that creature because you've already targeted him, right? So in my view, right, I can come in here and just say apply damage, and I'm just going to do full, and I'll show you how this works in a second. For you, you killed it, right? So now let's do the next kobold. So here, let me move him up. Kobold. Why is this not working? That should have moved. End combat. Yes. Let me rebuild. Let me redo this. I think because I'm moving between all these windows, combat is just getting a little funky. All right, let's start combat again. Let's just roll for everybody. And let's begin. All right. So this kobold runs up to you, Krusk. And again, I have the same feature where I now would select Krusk. I'm going to target him. And from your view, right, you're showing targeted, no problem. And what that does is let me swing, right? So my little kobold's going to swing his little, where is it? Inventory is going to swing my dagger. And I'm going to show it. Give me 1 sec. I just got to do a couple things. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to swing. He missed, but I'm going to pretend that hits. So, right, the kobold swings on you, Krusk. And he hits for a mighty 5 points of damage. You have the ability to right-click and do -5, right, just like roll 20. Or you can come over here and right-click on the damage with you selected, and you can say apply the damage, and it just automatically applies it to you. I could do that for you as well because I've got you targeted. Just another interesting way to apply the damage. So that's a little bit about, targeting. You don't have to use it, but it's a nice little feature. And then when you're done, right, as I go back here, right, so I'm Krusk, I'm going to go target, and I'm going to just left click on this guy again because he's dead. So you just have to remove the target manually. So again, it's up to you if you want to use it or not. Now, let's go do one last thing here. I'm just going to turn off the target because, he did his little thing. I'm going to move him back here. And let's advance the game tracker. So Kobold 2, Krusk. All right. So we showed you how to do a melee attack. It works the same way for bows, crossbows, etc. But this paladin, for some reason, has the mighty fireball, right? So let me select him, and I'm going to cast fireball. And this little pop-up's going to show up, and it's going to say consume spell slot. Say yes. Then it's going to say place measured template. If you're casting it at a higher level, you can do that here too. But I'm going to cast the spell. So what this does is it automatically gives you the template. So, well, what's the radius on that spell? How big is it? It automatically is going to give it to you. If it's a 60-foot radius, a 5-foot radius, whatever. If it's a circle, right, it's going to give you that. If it's a square, it's going to give you a square. If it's a ray or a cone, it gives you all of that, right? And then you just move it around till you figure out where you want to target, and it's going to tell you. Notice that these guys have the little target things. Who's targeted? So, well, if I place it here, am I going to miss? Am I going to get? Great. I'm going to drop it right here. And then you left click, drop the template, done. You come and roll your dice, 32 points of damage. I would go on my side and apply the 32 points of damage, and shpa, they're dead. So that's the nice thing about how spells work here, and that's how you do it. Now, what we ran into was the whole issue of, well, how do I get rid of this? All right. That's the second icon under basic controls. If I click this, I can now come here and grab that, and I can move it. So some of those spells that allow you to cast and then using concentration, I can move it. You can just grab the template and then reposition it. Obviously, Fireball is a one and done thing. So what you do is you just move your mouse over it. You don't have to click, and then you just hit delete on your keyboard and it goes away. So, and then remember to go back here. And so now you can reselect your token and move your token around. So that's just how the templates work. And that one we'll probably continue to work through. So those were the main tips and tricks. I know that's a lot. I know this is probably a little bit longer than expected, but hopefully you found it useful. And I look forward to kicking off Istrum, the Reemergence, with you guys tomorrow night. Cheers.